Hello everyone, it's Shannon for Waffle Flower Crafts. Today I'm going to be using two stamp sets from our fall 2017 release. These just came out July 20th. I'm using that first set is called Hooray, and then I'm going to also use for a second card today I'm going to use the season. I'm going to start off with a piece of watercolor paper. This is a A2 panel, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Watercolor paper has two sides, a kind of a more textured side and a smoother side. I am stamping on the smoother side. I'm pulling off pretty much every single image I can fit on here from the Hooray stamp set, and I'm just positioning them here. I'm going to cover this entire panel with images from this stamp set. I'm going to be stamping them in a waterproof ink, which is actually VersaFine Onyx Black. A lot of you have that ink and may not know that it is waterproof, so I won't have to do any embossing or anything, and I don't have to worry about my stamped images bleeding. So VersaFine is a really great ink. Great for stamping your sentiments. It always comes out nice and clean and crisp, and really cool that it can be waterproof as well. So I'm just inking up these images with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and then I'll fold this over and stamp them. I've got as many on here from that Hooray stamp set that I could kind of fit. I'm having some images hang off the edge a little bit, and I'll just ink this up one more time just because there's several images and I didn't quite get them all inked up as much as I'd like, and stamp that down. See, I missed one little spot there. Do a little bit more on his shirt, and that's done. So now I've repositioned some more images. I'm using one of the creative corners to kind of help so I can get around that edge there, so I can have some hanging off, so that those are really useful for when you want to completely cover a panel, those corners. And just going to ink it up a couple times just to make sure it stamps nice and clean. Just there's lots of images on here, so gotta make sure I get them all covered with ink. Okay, so that's done. That panel is all stamped. I'm going to dry this really well. The only downside I think with the VersaFine ink is it is a pigment ink and does take longer to dry. So I did heat set that with my heat gun. So here are the Tombow markers that I'm going to use today. They're basically all from the Brights marker set. I'm using like a lighter or a bright rainbow kind of color palette. I'm going to start with the yellow, and I'm just going to kind of randomly place it around this panel. I'm coloring in the background today. I'm not going to color in any of the stamped images. Now I'm moving on to orange, and I'm going to place orange adjacent to that yellow. So the only thing you have to be careful with this is because I will be wetting this and blending the colors together, some colors don't blend well or don't mix in to make a nice pretty new color. A lot of them, some of them will mix and make like a brown or a gray, kind of muddy up. So I'm being very careful and mindful of what colors I put next to each other. So think about your rainbow or your color wheel. What colors go next to each other in the color wheel? Those will blend nicely together. And then there's a few exceptions, like yellow blends nicely into blue even though they're not really adjacent to each other. And that's about it. I think blue blends okay into pink, not terrible, pretty good into pink. Purple is better. So that's the only thing I'm being mindful of. I'm trying not to get like a blue next to an orange, because if I mix those two together with the water, they're going to create brown. Also like purple and yellow. That will kind of create a brown. So I'm trying to be careful here, keeping the colors adjacent to each other that would blend nicely together to make a new color. So that's all I'm doing. And these these Tombow watercolor, or these Tombow markers, are water-based ink. So when I wet them, they will basically act like a watercolor or an ink almost. They'll be very fluid and they'll mix together on my paper, and it'll look like I'll have a watercolor look, even though I didn't actually use my watercolor paints. I used the markers. This can also be done with distressed markers. Those are also water-based ink, so this works really well for those if you have those instead. So I'm almost done here. And I do another one. I showed you at the end a second card that I made where I picked colors that were more like all blues or greens, which all kind of go together. And that I didn't have to worry about when I was coloring my background. I didn't have to worry about which colors were adjacent to each other. So that's another trick. If you don't want to have to worry about it, just pick like a color family, like blues or two colors that work together, and then the different range of tones. That will work. So if you don't want to have to worry about blending your colors together and getting mud. Okay, so that's all done. I've got it all colored with my markers. And now I'm going to move on to the water. So I have a water brush here. You could just use a regular brush and a cup of water on the side. But this water brush makes it just a tiny bit easier, I think. And I'm going to start with the light color and just start blending that green and that yellow together. And it'll kind of soften that transition between the two colors. And I'll move on to the next transition, which is the blue and the green. And that kind of makes a really pretty like teal color when they're mixed together. Really like that blue and green mixed. And so I'm going to continue to do this throughout the whole panel. The only thing that I will warn you about is because you're picking up color, you're picking up some of that ink, and you move over to another section. So like that blue right here is a tricky spot. I've got a blue kind of a little bit right by that orange. You'll see here in just a second. And I don't want to bring that blue into the orange, so I'm cleaning my brush, you can see right there, onto that napkin or paper towel. You can use paper towel, I just ran out. And then I'll move on to the orange. I just don't want to blend a lot of that blue and that orange together because, again, that will make mud. So you want to definitely make sure you have like a paper towel or a napkin or a towel handy to clean your brush every so often, so you don't, for one, you don't mix two colors that don't mix well together, so you can clean your brush in between those two colors, and also so you don't get all the same hue, because sometimes you can mix too much the blue and the green together, and then you just have teal instead of having that beautiful like transition from blue to teal to green. So it's important to have like a paper towel handy just to clean your brush every so often. Okay, so this is going to take me a little while, so I'm going to play some music here and let you guys watch the whole process, and I'll meet you back at the end. Okay, so I'm almost done with this, just wrapping up a little corner there, and that is all watercolored. So I am going to let this dry now for a little bit. I probably will just heat set it with my heat gun. Okay, so this is now all dry, and I'm just going to show you now how I touch up. So I'm not perfect, so I got some of the ink in some of the images where I don't want it to be, so I'm just re-wetting the image where I got the paint or the ink, and then blot it up with my paper towel, or in this case a napkin. You can do that again, of course, with the paper towel or towel if you have that instead. So I'm just doing this a little bit more on one of the other images where I got some paint where I didn't want it to be. So it's nice that it cleans off your images pretty easily, so that's great. So now I'm just going to stamp my sentiment. I'm going to stamp Hooray, which is from the Hooray stamp set. I'm going to stamp it on this strip of black cardstock. Just pick up the sentiment here. I'm going to ink it up with some embossing ink. Before I stamp it though, I'll put down some anti-static powder. Really important to do with when you have black cardstock, because if any powder sticks, you really see it with that dark cardstock, so that's important to do. So inking that up with the embossing ink, fold it over here, and then I'll stamp it. And I am going to emboss this with some white embossing powder. So I'm just going to pour this on here and then tap off the excess, and then I will heat set this with my heat gun, and then I will trim it down using my paper trimmer down to a little strip. So there, it's all trimmed. Now it's ready for me to construct the card. So I'm just going to use some Tombow mono liquid adhesive to adhere this watercolor panel down. I found that it adheres really well. I'm adhering it down to an A2 black cardstock card base. And then I will use some foam tape here to snip a little strips off, and then add it to the back of my sentiment, and then just peel those off and stick it down right in the center. And there you go. That card is finished. So it's very bright and vibrant. Lots of color. Of course, if you just chose different colors, it would be a totally different feel, but this is very bright and colorful. I really love these images in this Hooray stamp set. They remind me of Chutes and Ladder, the game. They are just so cute and so happy. I love them so much. And this is the Season stamp set. This is the second card I was telling you about, where I stuck with mainly blues and greens, which mix really nicely together, and I didn't have to worry about getting any muddy colors. And I really like how that card turned out as well. So if you would like any more information on our products, please visit waffleflower.com, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Have a wonderful day.